Welcome to the Mason Duchatschek Show. And before we jump in, this episode is brought to you by WorkforceAlchemy.com, helping leaders uncover hidden profit leaks inside their workforce. Boaz Gilad is the founder of Zenith Clubhouse and the author of the Savage, Not Average philosophy. He's the author of the Zenith Code, Winning the Games That Matter, where he draws on over 17 years of coaching elite performers, from Olympians to CEOs, to help high achievers stop chasing more and start winning the right games. Boaz is known for his direct, no excuses approach to performance, pushing leaders to raise their standards and build a life that actually reflects their potential. Boaz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So in the Zenith Code, you talk about winning the right games. What was a game that you were winning that ultimately did not matter?
Wow, that's a great question. So, game that mattered to me, I would say, is real estate development. I was a real estate developer for 20 years. And in the peak of my career, I took my company public. So I ran a public company for almost 7 years. So that, again, that if you kind of travel in time and ask me what's the most important game I'm playing, I would say to you is the running a public company. It turned out really badly in my case. Actually, the company blew up. I had a hustle takeover. It blew up in a bad way. Looking back, now being 7 years after the collapse of the company, I would say it was not important because for many years it did not serve me except for financial service. So except for making a lot of money, it really didn't serve who I am, what I'm committed to, and what's important to me. So I would say that's a game I played. And then at the same time, looking backwards, it's not the game that really served who I am.
Fair enough. And I know you've coached Olympians and CEOs. Can you share with us a moment where you saw someone who was elite when they realized that they were still playing too small?
Yeah. So here's how it generally works. And I did work with two teams. One is the Olympic team, and I work with many CEO, mainly of business. And so here's how it generally works. And I'll give you an example of one of my early clients. Generally, when you're a top performer, what I say top performer, basically you accomplished above average results, you're doing very well. And you're going to keep on, like, to really make it simple, you keep on doubling down on what you're good at, right? So the issue is not in areas that you're already doing very, very well in. The issue is that there's some area of your life where you don't bring the top performance way of thinking into that. And what do I mean by that? All right, I'll give you an example of this client. So John is the CEO of a very successful large logistic company in the Midwest. And I also work with John about something we met through an organization we belong to, and we started to work together. And if you ask John's employees and clients, how is John? Look, he is incredible. He's successful. He is an inspiration. He's, high level of integrity, top performer, right? But then when you talk to John, he says to you, I'm such a loser. And that's his words, right? And I said, why do you use that? And he said, look at me. I'm 300 pounds. I hate how I look. I got old. I don't feel well, etc. Now, again, there's no judgment for me. I'm not someone who says to you, you should look a particular way or behave or make X amount of money. Whatever. It has nothing to do with that. To some degree, a good coach is a mirror to whatever is important to you, not what's important to me, right? So I said, John, people love you, people admire you. You're very wealthy. You're successful. He said, yeah, no, I'm a F loser. I'm like, what? He said, because I cannot lose this weight. So I got really curious. I was fascinated by how is it that John or any of the clients in one place of their lives are top performers and they don't have the ability and the system to copy and paste it to another area. So that's where the challenge is. The challenge is not in getting better what you're already good at, but why is it that you're so good when it comes to fitness? You run a marathon. You're like, I work with some people, they're like running marathons, they're doing Ironman, all that stuff, right? And their businesses are failing. And I was like, how is it in one place of your life you have such discipline and rigorous processes and all things, and other areas you're completely at loss? So that's, I think, the conversation to have is like, that's the conversation I'm having with people. What are the areas
what kind of tips or strategies did you give him?
Well, we looked at it. First of all, it starts with understanding. Like there's an aha moment when someone realizes that they're very good at one thing and they're not using the same thing. I said, if you hired yourself in the area of fitness, the way you operate the business, how would you be? Like, I will fire my ass. That's literally the word he used. So I said, okay, so first of all, now the reality is, now we know that there's one area of your life. Now let's start to take the things you're already good at and start to implement in the areas that you're not good at. It's kind of like someone who's very good in push-ups. They have great triceps and chest, right? Muscles. And then they want to develop their legs, so they keep on doing push-ups. It makes no sense, right? Like it's
Right.
a stupid example, but people do that. So the first thing is analyzing where you're good at and how we can implement that success into other areas.
It's funny because for those listening, it's no secret I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins, and he talks about a lot of these things, which is one of the reasons that I was interested in having you on, was he talks about you're a sum total of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And I have found that to be true. I remember when I did my first Ironman triathlon back in the day, all of my peer group were entrepreneurs and long course triathletes. And where a lot of people would spend 5 or 6 hours hanging around at the bar, shooting the breeze, we were out talking business on a 5 or 6 hour bike ride. And I remember when I guess Robbins was interviewing somebody else and he was talking about someone kind of like what you've described, where the person was having difficulties in one area of his life. And he's like, hey, I'm making millions of dollars and whatnot. Robbins basically told him, said, hey, you're a sum total of 5 people you hang around with the most. You need to start hanging out with billionaires.
Exactly. And one other thing that Tony Robbins speaks about, I think when he says that, and he is brilliant, what he points to is the environment around you. So it can be in the environment of people around you, it's the environment of conversations around you, and it's the literally physical environment around you. If you are committed, and again, we keep on giving this example because it's just a simple black and white example, but if you're committed to health and fitness, and I walk into your kitchen or pantry and it's full of fast food and crap, you can't tell me you're committed. I mean, why would you set yourself up with an environment that doesn't support what you're up to? And no difference than the 5 people around you. Why would you send yourself people who are committed to, again, there's no judgment in what Mason, you and I are saying. They're just observation of what is the game you want to play. If you want to play the game of wealth, don't surround yourself with people who are just interested in doing the minimal work and get, minimal salary so they just can pay the bills. Because it's in complete contradiction to what you're committed to.
It's, again, in the spirit of Tony Robbins, in his book, Awaken the Giant Within, he talked about the moment of decision and what you decide is important. And one of the exercises in that book that I've never forgotten, and it's been a while since I've read it, but he talked about listing your values. What's the most important? What's second most important? What's third most important? What's fourth most important? And when you decide what those values are, you look at how that shapes your choices and your behavior. And if your goal is, in this case, this guy's making money and doing great business-wise, so that's very high. And health and fitness was way down on his list. So he's making a whole bunch of choices to prioritize other things while fitness is not as important. And hence he found himself at 300 pounds. Well, what I found fascinating by Robbins' approach, he said, you have the ability to rearrange those values. And something, if fitness was very, very low on your list, move that up near the top. And now all of a sudden your decisions are different because you have different filters. When you talked about the example of someone being fitness oriented and having a pantry full of junk food, well, if they make health and fitness a greater priority, then they will make different choices when they go to the grocery store. But it's a conscientious decision. I believe it's a conscientious decision to make those, to arrange your values in a way that supports the lifestyle that you want.
Yes, and the Zenith Code and the Zenith Clubhouse, I decided when I started to work on it, and I taught at NYU grad school, real estate, and I wrote my first book about real estate and entrepreneurship, and I started to work with people, and that kind of gave me that path that I'm on right now, is I found that it is important, and who am I to criticize Tony Robbins? But it is very important to have a very clear list of values, right? But the challenge is not there. I found with, working with literally speaking to thousands of people, that it's the structure that is the challenge. A lot of people have inspiration. I mean, New Year's Eve, you're sitting there, you're like, oh, here's my new value. This year is going to look differently. I'm going to do this, X, Y, Z. People are obsessed and delighted by making lists of new values or new commitments. But where they're failing is not in choosing new values. Where they're failing is the implementation of those in reality. It's the actions. It's that kind of like going to the gym and lifting the weights where they failed in, not in the inspiration. And I think one of the challenges is we want it easy. We want it simple. We want to kind of like mix it with water and drink it, like and have it, right? But that's the culture you and I live in. Which is fine. But the reality is it's all about structure. It's all about creating environment around you and structure that practices and people around you that will fulfill what you're up to.
Can you give me maybe an example or a story where you've seen
Sure.
someone turn things around because they executed some of the things that you're talking about?
Yeah, I have, one of my, I had two clients who had a coffee shop and they opened I think it was the third or the fourth one, and they did not do very well. So they came back to me and said, can you work with us? And I said, of course, I'll be happy to. They're wonderful. And first of all, we got clear about what they're committed to. And one of the things we saw very fast is that they actually committed to two different things.
They commit to what?
They committed to two different things.
Okay.
He was committed to having enough money from 2-3 coffee shops and living life with a young kid and spending more time with his daughter, right? She was one of those driven New Yorkers who wants to have like it's called the third wave, which is like not Starbucks, but like kind of like the independent, cool, hipstery. She wanted to be a huge chain of coffee shops, right? So first of all, we noticed that their commitment is different. Therefore, their actions are different. So a lot of their friction came from like, she's like, it's not enough, let's push. And he was like, no, let's hold back because I want to make sure it's actually stable before taking the next action. So first of all, we differentiate that they should not be partners. They should actually split. And she bought him out and he was very happy and he has still percentages in the original kind of like where they started. And it was wonderful, right? But then when I went with her to the next level, I said to her, let's look at your calendar. And what does it reflect? Is your daily schedule reflects what you want? And then we saw that you're spending a lot of time in micromanagement. And I said, nothing wrong about that. If you're a micromanage kind of a guy or person, good for you. You will never be able to run a huge company. And you might be not interested in running your company. But again, one more example of the reality is in disconnect with what people are committed to. She was committed to running 20, 30 locations. I don't know how many they have now, but they have quite a few by now, right? And she was like running around getting cups and negotiating 2 cents off the paper cups prices and going tasting the new coffee group, which is important, but you can't have it. You can't do it all when you have 15 locations.
Right.
So ask yourself the question, if you're listening to us or just, if I literally open your phone and look at your calendar, tomorrow's schedule, does that reflect what you committed to? And I'm telling you, 80% of the cases, that's not the case. 80% of the cases, it's about like, I have to do this. I have to put that fire down out. I got to deal with that issue. It doesn't reflect what you committed to. It reflects the kind of constant blow of wind in your face that you're dealing with as a business owner or as someone who's committed to something great.
Like what you're sharing because, and I love your savage, not average philosophy. And in this particular case, you have two people who may embody the savage, not average lifestyle. One, her definition and vision of what savage is dominating her niche and owning a bunch of locations and whatnot, where the other partner you described, his savage, not average is that same philosophy, but applied towards his family life. Yeah, I want to be a savage. I want to be an amazing parent. I want to spend time with my child. I want to be able to deliver value. I'm going to be a savage parent. My priority is being an amazing father. So each of them can still live the savage, not average lifestyle and mantra.
Yes, exactly. There's no judgment. There really
But
is.
it's applied in areas, like you said, in environments that are conducive to what they want and what's important to them, which, even goes to the value. It's like what's most important is, and to him, being a better parent was more important than adding more locations and stress and debt.
Yeah, a top performer for him was about picking up his daughter at 2 p.m. from school. That's for them. That for him was like the ultimate success. There is no judgment. One of the challenges is that we're seeing, Mason, you and I are a little older, but I see with young people a lot when I speak with young people. I work with mainly the CEOs and executives, but I sometimes get invited to speak to young people. They have so many illusions that they live in, and it dictates their behavior. And one of the illusion is that there's the right success and the wrong success. And who the hell are we to say that a great mother is more or less successful than a great business person. It's not our place. What I'm curious about, what I'm interested, what I'm fascinated and I would say obsessed by is what will get you to be a top performer in whatever is important to you, not what's important to me.
Right.
If you want to be the best parent in the world, okay, let's use the top performing tools and abilities and infrastructure to get you to that. Not because I think you should have more money in life or should be healthy or not healthy. It's up to you.
So whatever niche someone wishes to pursue or whatever game that they want to play in a savage, not average way, what separates those who evolve from those who plateau after some early success?
Okay, so there's two layers to what you're asking. It's right on, right? One is to hit the first plateau. The biggest illusion that I'm committed to rip out of our, vocabulary is the need to be inspired. It's a complete waste of time. I'm not saying that inspiration is not needed, but it's like this little sugar rush. Inspiration is a good beginning, but it gets you nowhere. It like sugar. It burns itself really fast, and then you go back to the couch and you don't do anything about it, right? So one of the first thing I'm committed to ripping out of vocabulary of people is like, oh, I need to be inspired to do it. No, you need to be committed to doing it. Like, look, if you're married, I've been married for 27 years. You're not inspired every day by your marriage. I don't care how great your marriage is. And my marriage is quite extraordinary, right? But it's about the commitment. It's about what needs to be done. It's about, sometimes shutting up and not responding, even though you're really angry, or sometimes doing a gesture because it's important to them and not to you. All those things. It's not about inspiration. So I think that's the first thing. But to your question specifically, what happens if someone is doing well? They opened a deli and now they want to have a chain of supermarkets, right? There's a level when they get stuck in. And the question is, how do you get out of that plateau? And the difference I saw over the years between the two is the level of risk tolerance one has. Because you might be comfortable, and again, nothing wrong with it, but you might say, look, I'm just saying a number, $300,000 a year. In most places in America, it's a really, really good life, right? New York is crazy for us, so it's middle class, but in most places, making $300,000 a year, that's a great thing. So if you like your vacation and you like to spend time with your family and your business generates that money for you, then good, then fine. Don't say that you're committed to more. Just stop saying it. It's weird. Because if you're really truly committed to it, you would have done something about it. So one is people feel like they have to say something even though they don't believe it anymore. They actually are too scared to say, I'm comfortable. This is enough for me. The other thing, if they are committed to the next level, is that they're scared. They say to themselves, I don't have what it takes to the next level, or I don't have the right team around me to go to the next level. My employees are not good enough for me to double the size of my factory or my distribution. And that's a fascinating conversation, intellectual conversation to have with that person. Are you truly committed to the next level? And if you are, what are the illusions? In 80%, 90% of them, it's illusion. But what's the illusion you live in right now that you think are stopping you from going to the next level? And by the way, we master blaming others. We blame politicians, we blame the environment, we blame the economy, we blame all the time people around you. And we also blame ourselves often, right? Instead of just being fascinated by what's the things that need to put in place to support the next level.
It's funny you talk about inspiration. And again, this is just really relevant to this conversation. I don't usually, Tony Robbins ought to send me a check for promoting him, but there was I was listening to something he was saying the other day where he talked about starving distractions and instead of things you're committed to. And what he was saying was when you create an environment around which you get to do things that you were super passionate about, committed, not inspired, but committed to,
Yeah.
that you look at long hours as a reward. Like, I get to do more of this thing that I love.
Yeah, it's an extension of self-expression. For me, I'm a cyclist, right? So I like cycling. Like for me, cycling is not hard work, and I do very long distances, right? Now, obviously, I'm a human being, and there's more mornings on Saturday when I want to go riding. Then I'm like, I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll just go for a small one. But when I'm in it, I'm in it. I love it. I listen to podcasts and music, and I keep on writing, and it's a self-expression for me. It's something I love doing, right? Now, again, an illusion to think that you're always going to be excited about what you're doing. There's an example I like to use often. I read an article years ago about Michael Phelps when he was winning all those medals and when he kind of breaking every record of what it means to be a swimmer. And he said, I do three things. I eat, I sleep, and I swim. All right. That's a commitment. Now, I guarantee, I don't know Michael Phelps, maybe you do and we should get together, but I was so taken by that sentence, simple sentence. Because I guarantee that there's moments when he was waking up at 5:30 a.m. to train that wasn't inspired in that moment. He wasn't excited about jumping to cold water if it's winter, right? It's what needs to be done to get the rewards. One of the things that I kind of like, I'm very like a no nonsense kind of a delivery person. Like one of the things I keep on pointing to my clients, people take my workshop, is like you live in La La Land. You live in illusion. You think you're not going to need to do the work and you expect the results. By the way, social media is a terrible source of that because all those young people are looking at this guy driving a Lamborghini and he's like, I bought crypto and I sold for the fine. First of all, I didn't buy crypto and most people didn't know what if we knew we would have bought it. But how many cases people bought things that similar to crypto and lost all their money? But there's this illusion that without working hard, without doing the practices, without getting up and getting into the water, and swimming, you will get the gold medals. And it's just an illusion. It gets people frustrated and they want shortcuts and they want to take like all those things versus actually understanding that to get to what you want, one needs to put in the work. End of story. Not good news, not bad news. That's it.
You spoke about commitment, and I'm sure this has come up. So I'm just going to ask you to, if you don't mind, maybe share an example or a story of someone that their commitment had waned and maybe they're actually very good at what they did, but it was time to walk away from something that they were good at or just shouldn't have continued doing. How have you facilitated that? Or what kind of advice or guidance do you have for people in that position? Because I'm sure there's people listening right now that are thinking, I should be doing something different. I don't feel committed to this, but they're good at what they're doing. They're comfortable. What do you say to them?
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me is that there's a moment when one needs to be very compassionate. What you've done in your 20s, even if you're masterful and great at it, it's not maybe what you want to do or what you're interested in doing on your 40s. And one of the things I found is compassion is a critical thing in the process. I had an incredible client. She was a prima ballerina. She was a brilliant dancer in the American Ballet Theater. And then she opened up a studio, workout studio. And one of the things she had to deal with often is that lack of excitement. When she was a dancer, she was so in that world. That was her true best. But look, she was hitting 40. And you can be a dancer when you're 40. Just your body does not have the ability to deal with that injuries and stress on your body and all that stuff, right? So one of the things that I work with her about is compassion. Forgive yourself that you no longer have what it takes. So it's a critical thing. We are so harsh on ourselves. We're like, oh, but I'm good at it. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it. Not having the courage to stop and say, yes, but does it still serves me? And look, I'm a product of this sin. I, in real estate, did very well for many years. And I did not like real estate in the last few years of my career. I didn't like it. But look, I was driving a really nice Porsche. And I took my family on great vacations. And it was compensating for what I really didn't like. And when my company blew up, and again, blew up in a bad way, not in a good way, it made me sit on in a T, like a T in the road, like a fork in the road and say, do I want to go back to real estate? And I had a good name and I didn't blow up my name. And people said, okay, I know you lost, but we know who you are. Let's go and do. But I was like, what a great opportunity. Not easy. It was not easy in those moments. It was very difficult times in my life. I lost everything I had, but it gave me kind of an opportunity to question, what do I really want to do? And it's not easy. And look, sometimes people go through that. People have a heart attack and then suddenly come back and say, you know what? I don't want to do what I used to do before that. But the question I would ask someone, do you really need a cancer or a heart attack or losing your company to pause and reevaluate what's important to you in your life? And then what a great exercise to do.
You know what? That is a great exercise. And it's not even if someone needs to make a change to do something different. Maybe they've gotten away from the things that made them great in the first place. And it inspires a recommitment. I'm thinking about the time I heard Michael Johnson speak. the famous sprinter with the golden shoes. He was the fastest man in the world at one point in time, and I had the opportunity to hear him speak. And he talked about how he became a celebrity. And the reason he became a celebrity was because he was the fastest man in the world. He was getting invited to these amazing parties. He got a big house. He had a swimming pool. He had a nice car. People were throwing money at him. And he said that he found himself on a plane going to Europe for the World Championships, and he started worrying about whether or not he'd made arrangements with the pool guy to keep his pool clean when he was gone. And he admitted that the awakening for him was, he's like, I'm going to compete against the best runners in the world. And I'm sitting here worried about my pool. I need to starve my distractions and focus on the one thing that brought all of these things to me, which is my ability to run faster than anyone in the world. And when you're talking about fraction of a second that separates the number one guy in the world from the 30th guy in the world or 100th guy in the world, he knew what he had to do. He said, hey, I sold my pool. I sold all that stuff and I got back to the basics. And that was a guy who didn't get away from it. He got away from the things that were pulling him away from the things that he was passionate about and excited about. So, and I know that you coach people like this. So I'm fascinated by the insights and lessons that you've gotten from some of these people that are super high achievers and how they look at things and the choices they make that are different from other people. I'm just curious.
There's a curse and sorry, Mr.
Go ahead.
There's a curse and a blessing in being a top performer. Okay, like one conversation we're having is how to develop yourself to top performer. Some people are by nature top performers. Okay, not in every area of their lives. That's how they work with me, but in some areas of their life. Here's the blessing. The blessing is that they have this hunger to be at the top of the game. It's like this inert engine, this nuclear power inside of them that never shuts down. They want to be, and might be from their childhood or from the culture they grew up in. And like, I'm not a therapist, so like, I'm not dismissing it. I'm just saying it's not relevant to this conversation because I'm more of a sport coach. I'm like, what can we do to get you to the top performing, right? So that's again, a blessing and a curse. But the other thing is gold handcuffs. The story you said about the golden handcuffs are critical part of the cost of success. When the guy sit on a plane and his mind is like, oh my gosh, did I set up my pool to be clean, or did I leave? Where he's actually committed to winning the next gold medal or whatever medal he was up to, right? That is because he got, for a minute, he's lucky enough, and that's why he spoke to the room you were talking to listen to. He was caught in the golden handcuffs problem. Sometimes we experience success and then we get used to the big house or the nice cars and we lose that elasticity that we had in the beginning, that flexibility to jump between success and not success. And by the way, that's what made you the sexy, successful person you are. When you were 25 years old and you started your business, you were as flexible as one can be. Oh, I need to do that. No problem. Oh, I need to run to pick up from U-Haul a truck and drive my own stuff around. Absolutely. Do I need to work 20 hours? Absolutely. I need to talk to this neighbor of mine who has money to invest with me. Absolutely. You are so flexible. You're unstoppable. You're magic, right? But as you grew up, you put more and more barricades around you and you forgot the game, which is about being flexible. Look, why do I keep on using the word game? It's all a game. It's all going to end the same. There'll be a moment when you and I are not going to be here anymore. And games have 3 rules. I always talk to people about game has time limitation, scoreboard, okay, and a goal. That's a 3 thing, everything. Whether you look at sports, you look at business, look at everything, right? Nothing exists forever if you're a human being. So I'm saying, what's the game you want to play? And you forgot. You've been playing that game of making your business success for so long. You forgot it was a game. Now you relate to it like it's something you must do. You can't do. You have to have courage. You have to build the next step. I'm not being irresponsible, leave home, the midlife crisis thing. I'm leaving, I'm getting a sport car, and I'm dating my secretary. I'm not saying that what you should do unless that's what you want to do. All I'm saying is like, choose the game you want to play. And then play full on.
So how do elite performers build support systems that actually elevate them instead of just surrounding themselves with comfort?
So you're saying elite performance. When it comes to actually young top performers, one of the things that a lot of managers learn, let's talk about sport for a second, is that they don't have the capacity. If you're an NFL player and you're 20 years old and you're making a few $1 million or 23 years old, you don't have the capacity. So good manager will surround you with people who are going to think about What are you going to do when your knees give up and you're 50 years old, or you have some brain injury, like all the thing about it. But top performers, what they do is one of the things I work with them is that flexibility we spoke about, that elasticity is like throw yourself off the game again and again. Don't get rigid. Don't get excited. Find the next goal for yourself. What's the thing that's going to kick you out of kick you out of the house, kick you in the morning, get you excited, jump out of bed. That's the thing. So one of the things we look at, we analyze what is truly important to you as of now, not what it used to be. Because when you start your business, what was important to you is making a lot of money. Now you have a lot of money, whatever a lot of money means for you, right? Okay. But you forgot and you stopped creating new games for yourself. So now it's about getting on the treadmill that never gets anywhere. And that's why you stop being a top performer. Because you don't have empowering force behind you, you stop delivering. So one of the things is right away let's clear. You're now 45, you're 50, you're 60, you're about to retire, your kids are leaving home. What is the next game we can create that inspires you? And then use the tools that you learn through life for the next game.
So if there was only one piece of advice that you could give to people listening to watching today, what is the most important piece of advice you could give and why?
That's a real challenge, Mason. Here's what advice I would give them. I would give them, sit down in an honest moment with yourself and say, put all the limitations that you have aside. I'm not saying ignore them, or just put them aside. What would your life look like if it was you in the driving seat? So that's the first thing. And if it looks the way it looks right now, good for you. Keep on doing what you're doing. You don't need me. You don't need coaching. You're doing well. You might need maintenance once in a while, right? It's like driving a Toyota Camry. You don't need much. Oil change, some filter change, keep on driving, right? You want to drive a Formula One? That's tuning on the level of microseconds, okay? So it's a different kind of driving. They're both driving, right? They both have
Sure.
four wheels and, an engine, right? But it's a different kind of driving. So the first thing, if I can only give one thing, is sit down without anyone around, not your significant other, not your best friend, and be brutally honest with yourself. Are you living the life that you want to live? If God forbid you had a stroke tomorrow morning and seconds before you're no longer with us, would you smile and say, wow, what a great journey I had? Or would you say, shit, it's not what I wanted? And that's a very honest, confronting question to ask. And that you start from there, then the rest we can work out.
Well, I appreciate all your time, your wisdom, your perspective on things. I love getting to talk to smart people who have different perspectives and life experience. There's just so much to learn, and I love what I do because of it. If people want to know more about you, your books, your services, what's the best ways for them to connect?
So first, thanks for asking. And I'm always available. It doesn't matter. I'm always making myself available. So the best way to reach out to me is either through LinkedIn or boazgilad.com. You have my name on the screen. So boazgilad.com or Zenith Clubhouse is our website. So find me on social media. I have Substack. I love people reading my Substack because I have a weekly article on Substack. So if one wants to find me, just Google. You'll find the articles about my big real estate career and the collapse of my company, but you're also going to find how to find, which is boazgilad.com, LinkedIn, Substack, social media, and et cetera. And reach out, ask
And
questions.
your book?
My book, it's on Amazon. My first book was McGraw Hill. My current book is with Amazon. And, love you and I doing it because we love making a difference in people's life. And that's what drives us. And that's critical. And therefore, I'm committed to that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.